Have you ever thought about why some people only show up when they need something from you? They seem to be careless about taking but never giving. The world isn't as perfect as we think it is, and people often put on a sophisticated front to avoid consequences, obtain advantages for yourself. No matter how giving or nice you are, there will always be individuals who take advantage of you. Some of these people will be overt about it, while others will be more cunning and make you unaware of their actions today. We'll look at 10 signs that someone is only using you and doesn't care about you. It's important to note that this is not a time for criticism or judgment. Instead, it's a time to learn more about human nature and how to handle tough situations with strength and calm. Let's find out how to spot these people's red flags, set clear limits, and build a strong character to handle life's challenges. Before we start, I urge you to watch this whole video because everything in it is very important and will have a big effect on you. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Now let's talk about the first attitude. Number 1, the persistent lack of respect. When it comes to relationships, lack of respect isn't just one action, it's a pattern of actions that show a cold and indifferent attitude. A true friend or loyal companion always acts with respect, showing consideration and shared responsibility all the time. People who take advantage of you, on the other hand, often don't care about these basic rules. When you look more closely, this attitude forms a pattern of behavior that shows selfishness and lack of consideration. They often criticize you unfairly. No matter how hard you try, they put down your efforts, sometimes even making fun of or humiliating you in front of other people. Imagine having your plans suddenly cancelled or others always being late. It seems like they expect you to accommodate their needs and preferences. These behaviors, you might start to question your skills and self-worth. If you feel unappreciated and unimportant, this can make you feel hopeless, lose your way, and even depressed. But it's important to remember that flaws are part of being human. The difference between someone taking advantage of you and other people is that the abuser keeps doing it over time and doesn't try to stop. Life is always changing, and a lot of people feel stuck in a never-ending cycle of trying to please others and find acceptance only to be rejected and ignored. The important thing is to realize that you deserve respect and care, and you shouldn't put up with any less. Your life is like a journey on a ship, and you are the captain. Find out what you're really worth and then rebuild your confidence from that understanding. The ongoing lack of respect is a problem that can show up in many areas of life, such as personal relationships, jobs, communities, and interactions with other people. When people and groups don't respect each other, it can lead to many bad things like fights, confusion, mistrust, and lower well-being for everyone involved. Here are some possible reasons for and effects of not respecting someone for a long time. Communication breakdown. Respect is necessary for talking to each other well. Communication breaks down when people don't respect each other, which can lead to mistakes, fights, and anger. Tensions rising. If people don't respect each other, disagreements are more likely to get worse because people may act defensively or aggressively instead of trying to find a solution or compromise. Low morale. People may feel down, ignored, or undervalued when they don't feel respected at work, which makes them less motivated and less productive. Loss of trust. Respect is a must for building and keeping trust between people and within groups. When people don't respect each other, trust can weaken, which makes it hard to work together and reach shared goals. Negative effect on mental health. Being disrespected over and over again can be bad for your mental health, making you more likely to experience worry, anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Strengthening power differences. When people don't respect each other, power differences can get worse, with people in power or advantage controlling others without caring about their worth or freedom. Getting rid of a persistent lack of respect takes a multifaceted approach that includes raising awareness, building empathy, making rules for behavior clear, and creating a culture of respect and acceptance. This could mean putting in place training programs, rules of behavior, helping people work out their differences, and holding people responsible for their actions. Ultimately, Creating a culture of respect needs constant work and dedication from everyone in a group or community. Number 2, not keeping your promises. Promises are a strong way to commit to and keep a good relationship going, but they are also easy to break. People who want to take advantage of you will often lie to you and put someone or something else ahead of you. Think of your relationship as a play where words are the main character and actions are just forgotten lines. People who break promises are often perfect for the daily drama because they seem caring and promise to be your friend and support in every situation. However, the truth is that they may promise to help you with a project, be there for you in a tough time, or just spend time talking and sharing, but when it comes to action and keeping their word, they often become vague, like actors who can't do their jobs well. It separates people who see relationships as two-way streets of respect and support from people who only see relationships as a way to get what they want from them for themselves. When things go wrong, they often teach us hard but important lessons. When this happens, we need to learn how to recognize and set boundaries in relationships. This will not only help us avoid being used, but it will also boost our self-esteem and give us more freedom in our relationships. Sometimes it's best to say no or stay away from people who only want to use us without giving us anything in return. Seeing unhealthy relationships early on and leaving them behind not only keeps us safe but also frees us up to spend time and energy on healthier, more meaningful relationships. Remember that your worth doesn't depend on what other people do for you, but on what you know about yourself and do for yourself. Promises are more than just words. They're promises we make to other people that build trust and dependability. Promises broken, on the other hand, can have serious effects on relationships' image and self-esteem. This lesson will talk about how important it is to keep your promises and what happens when you don't. How to understand promises. Explain that a promise is an agreement or guarantee that you will do something. Talk about what promises mean in different areas of life like personal relationships, work, and interacting with other people. Stress how important promises are for building trust and keeping relationships healthy. Why people break promises. Look into common reasons why people break their promises, like forgetting, not being sincere, or things happening outside of their control. Talk about what might happen if you take on too much and feel the need to please other people. Stress how important it is to be honest and practical when you make promises. Changes in relationships. Look at how breaking vows can hurt relationships and trust. Talk about the negative emotions that both sides experience, such as betrayal, sadness, and anger. Give some examples of how broken promises can cause problems and confusion in both personal and business settings. Gaining trust. Again, look into ways to rebuild trust after breaking a promise, like saying sorry in a real way, taking responsibility, and showing that you can be trusted over time. Talk about how important it is to communicate and be honest in order to regain trust. Stress how important regularity and following through are for staying trustworthy. Think about yourself. Tell your kids to think about the times they made and kept promises in their own lives. Get them to talk about how broken promises have affected their own lives and relationships. Help your kids figure out what they need to work on and how to set reasonable goals for themselves and others. It's not just a matter of being honest to keep your promises. It's also important for keeping relationships healthy and building trust in all areas of life. We can build better relationships and make society more trustworthy if everyone knows what happens when promises are broken and commits to being honest, dependable, and responsible. Number 3, competition. All the time. We all very familiar with the game of chess, where each move is carefully calculated not only to improve one's own position but also to strategically undermine the opponent. Similarly, in our relationships, there are individuals with hidden motives who often treat your relationship as a strategic game. In this type of relationship, you often feel undervalued and unappreciated. The other person frequently appears competitive, not only in necessary situations but also in normal circumstances, making you feel uneasy and tense. They not only do not listen to your opinions but also frequently interrupt or devalue what you say. This constant competition manifests in various forms in personal Relationships. This person often elevates themselves and belittles you even in the smallest achievements. When you accomplish something, instead of sharing joy, they become envious or attempt to diminish your achievements. In a professional environment, they often use tactics like excuses, distorting the truth, or even lying to maintain their dominant position in meetings. This not only makes you less likely to believe them, but it also makes the conversation tense and unsafe. Even when you're just talking, you can tell when they're trying to show how smarter, more successful, or better they are. This behavior comes from deep-seated fear and a skewed sense of one's own worth. They judge their own worth by how well they do compared to others, not by their own accomplishments. This makes every interaction a competition where one person has to win and the other, in this case you, has to lose. This way of thinking gets in the way of shared growth in favor of looking great and special. This relationship not only lacks the support and encouragement you need, but it also has unhealthy competition that hurts your spirit and health. It creates a constantly tense environment where competition takes the place of real cooperation or support. It's important to recognize and understand this pattern of behavior because it helps us set limits and, if necessary, change the relationship to make it healthier. Part of this process is realizing that every relationship should be based on respect and mutual support, not a never-ending race to be the best. Number 4. The lack of personal interest in the details. Personal interest in getting along with others. Lack of detailed personal interest is another big red flag. This is not only a sign of indifference but also a lack of respect and emotional connection. If someone doesn't take the time to understand and care about the little things in your life, it's likely that they see this relationship as a means to an end rather than a two-way bond. You may notice that they forget things you've told them, like your interests, dreams, or even fears. They might also forget about important days, like your birthdays or anniversaries, which makes you feel not only ignored but also worthless in their eyes. This lack of interest is also clear in how they treat your emotions. They might brush off or downplay your worries and sorrows, seeing them as bothersome or unimportant. This not only makes you feel lonely in the relationship but can also make it a bad place where you don't feel safe. For example, if you have a friend who only cares about themselves and never asks about your life, feelings, or dreams, you may feel like you're just listening to their story and that they aren't really interested in you. This lack of interest is a clear sign that this person sees you only for what you can do for them instead of who you are. In these situations, you should ask yourself if this relationship is healthy. The lack of these things can mean that you need to rethink how important this relationship is in your life. The lack of personal interest in a relationship is a warning sign that we need to rethink our connections and look for a place where we are valued and respected. If you've made it this far, you are one of the few people who is really looking to grow as a person. Number 5. What superficial connection means and how it works in a relationship where one person only uses you and doesn't care about you. A shallow connection is common. This sign is especially dangerous because it hides the real nature of the relationship. People who use you often avoid making a deep and meaningful connection. This kind of behavior shows up in interactions that don't go deep. This kind of connection can be with a friend who isn't interested in how you feel, or a co-worker who only contacts you when they need help. This can happen in family or romantic relationships when one person only thinks about what they can get from the other person and doesn't care about their feelings or needs. In these kinds of relationships, we can tell that there isn't any real attachment or care for the other person's feelings or well-being. People who use you often see you as a way to reach their own goals and don't care about how their actions affect you. One of the biggest problems with this kind of relationship is that it can hurt the person being used mentally and lower their self-esteem. If you constantly feel unappreciated or uncared for, you may start to doubt your own worth and feel like you can't change the situation. Getting out of this kind of relationship takes courage and self-awareness. You need to know your own worth and set clear boundaries. Remember that you deserve connections that are real and honest. Seeing the signs of a shallow relationship is the first thing you can To protect your mind and soul. It's also a chance to look for deeper, more meaningful relationships where you can share and experience depth and exchange. It's important to understand superficial links if you want to get along with other people and build relationships. When people interact or have ties that aren't very deep or emotional, this is called a superficial connection. Most of the time these connections are based on superficial things like looks, shared hobbies, or casual acquaintanceship. Here are some important things to think about and how superficial links work. Level music 1. Interaction. Level 1. Interactions like shared hobbies, mutual friends, or common interests are what make level 2 connections. Most of the time these interactions stay on the surface and don't get into deeper feelings or deep talks. Limited emotional depth. Surface level ties aren't as deep emotionally or intimately as deeper ones. People can make small talk or do things together without really getting to know each other or knowing their thoughts, feelings, or experiences. Transient nature. Connections on the surface are often short-lived. It's possible for them to come and go without having a big effect on your life. People may keep up these links because it's easy or because they feel socially responsible, not because they are interested or emotionally invested. Social networking. People often make quick links in social settings like parties, networking events, and social media sites. In these settings, quantity is often valued over quality, which makes relationships more surface level. Limited help system. Because shallow connections don't go deep emotionally, they might not offer as much help and understanding as deeper ones. When people are in trouble or need help, they might not have a strong network of people to turn to. If their ties are mostly superficial. Genuine versus superficial relationships. It's important to know the difference between genuine and superficial relationships. Real connections are based on trust, respect, and emotional closeness. On the other hand, superficial connections often lack depth and emotional involvement. Building meaningful relationships. In some social situations, casual connections can be useful, but if you want to build meaningful relationships, you need to put in time and effort into making real connections. To do this, you need to have deep talks, be open, and genuinely try to understand and connect with others on a deeper level. Knowing how superficial links work can help people handle social situations better and put more effort into building real relationships that will bring them long-term happiness and support. Number 6. Using emotions against people. One clear sign that someone is using you and doesn't care about you is that they can subtly play with your emotions. They often use your emotions as a tool to get what they want, which is clear when they put you in situations that make you feel confused, guilty, or ashamed. They know how to use words or actions to make you feel certain emotions, which makes it easy to control or change your decisions. Emotional influence can come in many forms and levels of sophistication. For example, someone may praise you too much to make you feel obligated to repay them, which they then use to demand things that are too much for you to handle. They might use the isolate and conquer approach to try to break down your relationships with other people so that you feel alone and more open to their control. Not only does emotional trickery make people lose trust and self-esteem, but it also makes them doubt their ability to judge the character of others. You might be stuck in a bad relationship and not know how to get out of it because you've been lied to and managed so much that you can't see the truth. This is common in relationships involving psychological manipulation. The manipulator always has more power than the target because they decide when to show affection and when to pull away, throwing off the target's balance. To sum up, emotional manipulation is not about mutual growth or support. Instead, it's about the manipulator only caring about meeting their own needs without thinking about the psychological well-being of others. To spot psychological manipulation, you have to be very aware of the patterns of interactions that play with your feelings all the time. To better understand how these exchanges affect you and your mood, you need to look within yourself. Number 7. Making you feel bad. In an unequal relationship where you feel used and not cared for, guilt can lead to frequent behavior. The person using this strategy is skilled at manipulating you by playing on your sense of duty, fairness, or responsibility. They may constantly complain or express disappointment about what you do or don't do, putting emotional and psychological pressure on you. They may say that you're not good enough or that you can't meet their expectations, making you feel like you're failing. They may use specific situations to make you feel guilty, like stressing how much you need their help and making it seem like a burden. They may also say things like, "After everything I've done for you, is this how you treat me?" to make you feel obligated to say yes to their requests. Finally, they may make you feel guilty about things that have nothing to do with them, like personal choices or relationships. This method works well because it takes advantage of a basic human desire to think of oneself as good, helpful, and caring. By making you feel guilty, the person using this method turns these good traits into tools to control you. As a result, you do things not because you want to but because you feel like you have to, which can make you angry or tired. Most importantly, this attitude not only creates a bad psychological environment but can also do deep and long-lasting damage to your mental health. You may become less confident and always feel uncertain and insecure. This can also make it harder for you to build and keep healthy relationships in the future. Recognizing when someone is using guilt to control you is extremely important for protecting your privacy and mental well-being. Identifying and dealing with this manipulation tactic plays a crucial role in building healthy relationships based on respect, genuine care, and free choice rather than being bound by obligation and guilt. You seem to be asking for advice on how to make someone feel bad, but I want to stress that making someone else feel bad on purpose is not a good or moral thing to do. I can, however, explain why some people might want to hurt other people's feelings and how to handle such situations in a kind and positive way. Understanding why people do what they do. People may try to hurt other people because they are jealous, scared, or want power and control. They probably act the way they do because of their own problems, not because of something you did. Empathy and compassion. Showing empathy and compassion can help calm down tense circumstances. Try to see things from the other person's point of view and respect how they feel, but don't always agree with how they act. Setting limits. If someone is always trying to make you feel bad, you need to set limits. Make your limits clear and tell them calmly and firmly that their behavior is not acceptable. Taking care of yourself. Feel good about yourself. Surround yourself with positive people who will pull you up and do things that make you happy and satisfied. Communication skills. Work on your communication skills so you can say what you think and feel more clearly. You can stand up for your needs and limits without being hostile or passive. If you practice assertiveness, ask for help. If someone's behavior is really bothering you, don't be afraid to ask for help from family, friends, or a mental health expert. Talking to someone can help you see things from a different point of view and figure out how to handle the problem. Remember that making other people feel bad only makes things worse. Instead, you should work on making friends and treating others with care. Number 8. Not enough real help. Next, let's talk about the 8th factor, which is an attitude that we can see in our own relationships: not really supporting each other. You may feel like the other person doesn't care about you or want to commit to your goals. They may be there when they need something from you, but not when you need them. They may only show up when they see personal benefit in doing so. In these kinds of relationships, your goals, projects, and challenges are often met with coldness or only token acts of support. The other person may not fully support your plans, but they may wish you luck or say they support you. Can has a lot of bad effects on your mental and emotional health. You might start to doubt your worth and think you don't deserve love. Focusing on their own self-interests makes them not support others because they see the relationship as a transaction and judge emotional involvement based on personal returns. This leads to a negative cycle of low self-esteem and a lack of trust in relationships. When one person always gives, the other person often only receives, creating an imbalance that makes the first person feel undervalued and forgotten. Realizing that the other person isn't really helping you is important for understanding the nature of your relationship with that person. To do this, you need to be honest about how much support you give and receive in your interactions. Finding and dealing with this lack of support is a key part of Making sure you spend your time and energy on relationships that are caring and helpful. We all have times in our lives when we need help, advice or support from other people, but not every kind of help is the same. When we get something, it might not fully meet our wants or expectations, which can make us unhappy or angry. The goal of this lesson is to talk about the idea of not enough real help and explain why real support is important for health and personal growth. Figuring out the issue. Help on the surface. People often offer help without fully understanding the problem or with good intentions. This kind of surface level help might help for a short time, but it doesn't get to the root of the problem. Lack of empathy. To really help someone, you need to be able to understand and share their feelings. Help that doesn't show concern can feel cold or uncaring, making people feel misunderstood and alone. Conditional support. Some kinds of help come with conditions, like the need to repay the favor or being judged for not meeting certain standards. Conditional support can make people feel less confident and more obligated instead of empowered. Why real support is important. Empowerment. Real help gives people power by validating their experiences and giving them the tools and direction they need to deal with problems. It makes people more independent and strong so they can handle problems with confidence. Emotional connect. Real help builds emotional bonds between people, which makes them trust each other and feel like they belong. It makes it safe to be vulnerable and supports honest conversation, which makes relationships stronger. Holistic problem solving. Real support looks at the whole needs of each person, addressing not only their current problems but also the deeper issues that are making their problems worse. It encourages people to work together to solve problems and find long-term answers. Well-being and mental health. Real support is a key part of supporting well-being and mental health. It makes you feel less lonely and alone, boosts your self-esteem and gives your life purpose and direction. Tips you can use right away to really help. Active listening. To truly understand other people's wants and needs, practice active listening. Give someone your full attention without judging them or talking over them so they can speak easily. Responding with empathy and kindness means recognizing and caring about other people's feelings and experiences. Allow them to feel what they're feeling and offer support and encouragement without forcing your own ideas on them. Practical assistance. Give people real help that is tailored to their certain desires. Provide people with helpful resources, guidance, or answers to assist them effectively handle their issues. Assistance without unfavorable remarks. In conclusion, the lack of adequate real support highlights how crucial it is for personal development, endurance, and health. By creating a safe space where people can seek assistance without fear of rejection or condemnation, respect their autonomy, and empower them to make their own decisions, we can positively impact the lives of others and create lasting relationships. Connections. By knowing the underlying causes of ineffective help and following the principles of empathy, empowerment, and holistic problem solving, remember that real help means more than just lending a hand. It means being there for someone and walking with them through their journey. Number 9. Being ready to choose. In the complicated world of relationships, we often come across another important danger sign. It's important to be ready to choose this problem when someone can easily come to us for help but acts strange and hard to reach when we need them. Now think about the following. You are often able to help others by responding to their different requests. This could mean being ready to listen and offer emotional support, do little things for them, or give them your time and care. But when you're weak and need help, people tend to stay quiet. They don't answer your messages, call you back, or at the very least avoid talking about it. That's how they act in that situation. This behavior pattern makes it so that the ratio of giving to receiving is lopsided. You feel like you're walking on a one-way street where all of your care and dedication flow in one direction without any return. This pattern not only shows that they don't care about your needs and feelings, but they also do so on purpose. So being ready to choose is like a mirror that shows an uncomfortable truth. The person is only there when it does something good for them. It's like an uneven scale in a relationship when one person's wants are always ignored. Realizing this is true and facing it is a big step. The question is whether we are really in a relationship that benefits both parties or whether we are just a way for others to get what they need. The situation makes us think about our self-esteem and self-respect, which forces us to rethink our personal limits and ask ourselves if this relationship is really based on genuine reciprocity and respect for our shared values. Our paths and futures are shaped by the decisions we make in life, no matter how big or small. Every choice we make, from the small ones like what to wear or eat, to the big ones like where to go to school, what job to pursue, and who to date, shapes our lives. Being ready to choose is more than just making a choice. It takes self-reflection, courage, and a readiness to deal with the results of our actions. This lesson will talk about why it's important to be ready to make decisions and how to make choices with confidence and clarity. How to music understand how important choice is. What we do determines our paths. Every choice we make puts us on a certain road that leads to a set of outcomes and effects. When we understand the power of freedom, we understand that we can make our own lives and futures. Our choices show what we value. Many of the choices we make are based on our principles, beliefs, and top priorities. Knowing our ideals helps us make decisions that are in line with who we really are and are good for our health as a whole. Choices are what make us grow and learn. We can learn and grow from our situations when we accept choice. Making a choice gives you important insights and lessons for the future. Even when you don't know what to do or when you fail getting ready to pick, think about yourself. You should think about your goals, desires, and values before making a decision. Think about how each choice fits with your personal values and long-term goals. Putting together information, find the right facts and points of view to help you make your choice. Talk to people you trust, do some study, and think about what might happen if you choose each option. Looking at the pros and cons, you should think about the risks and benefits of each option. Think about the chances of success as well as the short and long-term effects. Making the choice, believe in your gut. It's important to do research and think about a lot of different things, but follow your gut when making choices. Pay attention to your gut and your inner voice. Accept uncertainty. Know that having doubts is a normal part of making choices. Focus on making the best choice you can with the knowledge you have instead of trying to find absolute truth. Claim yourself. Take responsibility for what you choose once you've made it. Take responsibility for what happens, whether it ends well or badly. Being ready to choose takes more than just making a choice. It takes knowing yourself, getting ready, and having the courage to make the choice. We can handle life's challenges with confidence and clarity if we understand how important choices are in shaping our lives and make choices with purpose and mindfulness. Remember that every decision we make is a chance to learn, grow, and improve ourselves. Don't be afraid of the power of freedom. Use it to make the life you want. Number 10. Not being there at important times. Finally, if you're in a relationship where you're just a means to an end for someone else, their silence at important times in your life is a clear sign. This is especially clear when they're not there when you need someone to share the joy of a success or seek comfort during a hard time. Celebrating a special event or getting through a tough time in your life requires the support and presence of loved ones. Imagine you are going through one of those tough times and expecting support and empathy from a friend or partner whom you consider to be a friend. Instead, you find a void. That person is conspicuously absent, offering only surface comfort or generic words that seem more like a formality than a genuine gesture of empathy. They might be busy with work or other relationships, but they never make time for you when you need them the most. This shows that they don't respect you and that you are not important to them. Their constant absence also shows a painful truth: individual benefits are more important than genuine care in this relationship. When you need thought, they aren't there, but when they need something from you, they suddenly show up with a list of demands and expectations. This creates a transactional pattern where you feel used and undervalued. Going through important moments without their support and presence, over time you can clearly sense the lack of a genuine and profound connection, which can lead to a loss of trust. Recognizing and dealing with situations where other people don't care about your interests is important for your mental health. Learning how to handle these problems helps us build and keep healthy relationships based on mutual respect, empathy, and good communication. When we meet people who only see us as tools for their own purposes, it hurts the most to realize that we are just shadows in their lives. But don't forget that your worth doesn't depend on how others treat you. It comes from within and is shown by how you act when you don't feel respected or cared for. One has to figure out how to deal with complicated human relationships, which is a bit like distinguishing between a mirage and an oasis in the vast desert of interpersonal dynamics. The people you surround yourself with are only meant to make you feel better. They should bring out the best in you. There are many people who know how to hide their true feelings behind masks of friendship and self-interest. In a world full of meetings and breaks, to distinguish between true allies and people with hidden agendas, you need both intuition and a good eye. If you are new to my channel, help me create more videos like this by liking them. It is very important to have real allies in our lives and to watch out for emotional parasites. So let's look at some less obvious patterns and subtle signs that reveal what's really going on behind the smiles and empty promises. It is clear that you are interested in personal development. Since you're here, we're going to talk about uncovering these human secrets and how that can help you have more authentic and satisfying relationships. Let the day begin. Also, don't forget that Stoicism can help you reinvent yourself in 2024. Number 1, getting fewer comments. People who often use other people as a stepping stone to get what they want are very good at using insults to put others down. People who hear these comments lose their confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth. These comments, sometimes passed off as humor or friendly banter, are actually cruel jokes intended to depress rather than cheer people up. They may make fun of your achievements or goals, or they act as if they don't care about or understand your struggles and problems. This type of behavior is akin to subtle psychological warfare because usually does not value the other person enough, which throws the relationship out of balance. This is a planned move to make you doubt yourself and have low self-esteem, to make you easier to control and manipulate. In their eyes, her low self-esteem makes her look better, which increases her control in the relationship. Furthermore, people who say such rude things about others often demonstrate their own insecurities and feelings of not being good enough. By belittling others, they try to hide how weak they really are and give the impression that they are better than others. This behavior makes it clear that they are unable to build healthy, useful, and mutually beneficial relationships. It is very important to notice and understand this behavior pattern. In this way, you can move past the false charm that these people often apply and get to the bottom of unhealthy relationship dynamics. Asks you to deal with the behavior head and clear up any misunderstandings or stay away from such a harmful environment. Number 2, broken promises. Making and breaking promises can be like watching a play in which the actor's words' actions are a sloppy script. These people know how to convince others with words, paint vivid pictures of support and engagement. However, their words are often not followed by actions. With the skill of a painter, they raise expectations, but when it comes time to make these painted dreams come true, they hesitate, revealing how empty their promises were. There is a pattern in this type of relationship that shows when they should help more and keep their word. When these people leave, they often leave a void full of disappointment and disillusionment. This lack of presence in times of need is not only a breach of trust but also a clear sign of what they really want. Their promises are tricks to get people to trust or support them without expecting anything in return. Breaking promises then becomes a kind of test that distinguishes people who see relationships as a one-way street from people who see relationships only as a way to get what they want. You want to. When someone is left out, they often learn a painful but important lesson. Not all promises are based on truth and honesty. Therefore, breaking promises is an important behavior to look out for in people who you should understand and recognize when they are trying to take advantage of others. Number 3, only one side benefits. This can occur in different parts of a relationship, whether for practical, emotional, or financial reasons. The user can accept money or resources With the promise of return or reciprocity that never happened, you may rely heavily on each other for emotional support, approval and attention, and give little or nothing in return. When the roles are almost reversed, one person may constantly ask for help, time or favors, but be noticeably absent or overly busy when the other person needs help. In nature, a parasitic relationship is like a one-sided advantage. One organism benefits at the expense of the other. Whoever uses it gets food like an insect. This time they provide mental, financial, or practical help without doing the same or sufficient to improve the long-term well-being of the host. This lack of reciprocity can deplete the emotional, financial or time resources of those who give it, leaving them empty and dissatisfied. People who only care about themselves often do so out of a deep sense of selfishness and inhumanity. The person views relationships through the lens of a transaction. Judge the exchange by what you can get from it, not by what it can give. This way of conducting relational operations is fundamentally flawed, because it does not take into account the value of respecting, supporting and giving and receiving one another. You need a good eye to spot this pattern. It means being aware that you will always be disappointed in the relationship and never give anything in return. You need to be honest about whether relationships make you feel valued and respected or taken advantage of. And unimportant number 4, don't care about your feelings or needs. If you consistently ignore or devalue your emotional landscape in your behavior, it's like taking care of a garden and letting only one flower bloom while you ignore the others. When this happens, the other person's needs and wants come first while yours are pushed to the side or ignored because of what they do and say. Your emotional health is cut down and you feel ignored and undervalued in the relationship. This lack of care can show up in different ways. It might be clear from how often they ignore your emotional needs by not being there for you or understanding when you're feeling weak or in need. It could also be seen in the way they don't care about your choices or opinions and shut down your voice with their main story. They might not notice your accomplishments or, even worse, play down your problems, making the things that really bother you seem less important. This behavior isn't just careless, it is planned neglect, a way for them to stay in charge of the relationship by making your feelings and needs seem unimportant. The person using you creates an environment that lowers your self-esteem, which makes it easier for them to control and influence you. It's a subtle way to play with people's emotions, but it has a big effect. This dynamic is especially bad because it hurts the need to be heard, understood and valued, which is at the heart of emotional health. When these needs are ignored over and over, it can make a person feel alone and lower their self-esteem. Even if you're in a relationship that seems active, to get through this, it's important to know how to spot emotional neglect. Being aware of this will help you stay away from relationships that could hurt your emotional health, giving you the tools to look for connections in this kind of community. Respect, care and giving back are important values. Number 5, manipulating emotions. Perpetrators often start by pretending to be interested and caring. Eventually, though, this facade turns into a way to make their target feel anxious, inadequate or guilty. They learn how to gently push your emotional buttons, complimenting you to make you feel good when it suits them, and then harshly criticizing or undermining you to make you doubt yourself and depend on them. Imagine a gardener taking care of a fragile plant. Provide the correct amount of water and sunlight as a careful gardener cares for plants. In contrast, the emotional manipulator, like a careless gardener, waters the plant too much and then lets it die from lack of water. They destabilize by using extreme emotions, creating an environment where the target becomes emotionally dependent and always looks for approval from the manipulator to feel warm again. The emotional core of people's well-being is often what is manipulated. Their goal is to keep you doubting yourself by playing down your successes or exaggerating your failure. They could create false situations to make you feel bad about doing normal things, blaming others to make sure you always say sorry. Controlling someone's feelings is always unfair in relationships. Maintaining control is the manipulator's job. Figure out when to show affection and when to pull away, keeping their target emotionally dependent on them instead of helping each other or growing. This relationship is about satisfying one person's needs at the expense of the other person's emotional health. Recognizing emotional manipulation requires being very aware of these factors. It involves noticing patterns of interactions where feelings are consistently manipulated and turning inward to see how these patterns affect one's emotional health and sense of self. Number 6. Real support wasn't given. You can imagine that a tree in a very large forest receives food, protection and companionship in a healthy ecosystem should be ideal because of the trees and plants that surround it. Put yourself in the shoes of a tree that stands alone in a dry landscape with no other plants to help or protect it. Being in a relationship with someone who doesn't really care about your well-being is much the same. There is no one to help you when you are alone. Your branch wants to be with someone, but that person never shows up. In such relationships, as goals, projects and challenges are met with a lack of interest or empty expressions of support when it comes to practical help, helpful advice, or just someone to talk to when things get difficult. This person's actions or inactions speak louder than words. You are not allowed to say anything against your plans, half-heartedly offer him happiness, or even verbally support him. This lack of real support is because they only think about themselves. What matters to them are only the parts of your life that influence them or their goals, not your successes, errors, problems, or interests. By looking at relationships this way, can calculate how much emotional investment there is based on how much money they could make. One person is always giving, be it time, attention, or resources, while the other person is always receiving. In order to remain emotionally healthy and build relationships based on mutual respect and reciprocity, it is important to recognize these relationship patterns. Deal with dishonest people and find friends who are good for you. This will be easier considering how complicated human relationships are. The ability to recognize false relationships is an important skill along with intuition and self-awareness. You must be able to recognize subtle patterns of behavior that go beyond the obvious, such as comments that demean others, broken promises, giving a person something they don't deserve. You can orient yourself better in relationships. This knowledge gives you the power to make connections that are truly beneficial and fulfilling, which is good for your overall health. You are about to begin a journey to discover how people work. Trust, respect, and a shared desire for growth and well-being make a relationship real. Number 7. Always competing. Imagine a game of chess in which every move serves not only to improve your own position but also to worsen the position of the other players. Likewise, someone who only wants to use is likely to treat your relationship like a game. They use each of their successes, decisions, or even challenges as an opportunity to show how much better they are, whether it's eclipsing your professional achievements, surpassing your personal achievements, or subtly undermining your decisions. They do what they do because they want to stay ahead in this competition that they have set for themselves. There are many ways this constant competition manifests itself in the workplace. They may try to stay one step ahead of you in meetings or steal your ideas when you are around other people. By constantly comparing your experiences or achievements to theirs, they could make you feel less important. To see yourself more important in everyday conversations, there is a strong desire to prove that they are smarter or more successful. They behave this way because they are deeply insecure and have a biased view of their own worth, but believing that they are more valuable because they are better than others. From this point of view, every interaction is like a zero-sum game. If they win, you must lose. In this mindset, the need to improve and excel is more important than shared growth. It can be emotionally draining to be with someone who is constantly competitive. This creates an increasingly tense environment where real collaboration or support is replaced by competition. You will not be praised for your successes. Instead, they are seen as a threat to their power, and their problems are not viewed with compassion. Rather, they are seen as opportunities to move forward. It is very important to recognize and understand this pattern because it helps to set boundaries and, if possible, to change the relationship so that it works better for both parties. Part of this is recognizing that mutual respect and support, not an endless race to be the best, are the cornerstones of any healthy relationship. Number 8. Not there at crucial times. This behavior pattern is like a tree that only provides shade when the sun shines and disappears when the clouds come up. When things are going well, they are there enjoying the light together and perhaps even benefiting from the relationship. But when things change, when problems arise and help is needed, they are no longer there and you must face the storm alone. These people view relationships as a convenience, a way to get something they want, and judge their involvement based on how it helps them. Your support is only superficial, they only give it when it meets their needs or gives them something in a difficult situation, whether it's a personal crisis, a setback at work, or emotional turmoil. Their absence is felt when they need real support and understanding. This is when your true priorities and lack of commitment to the relationship become clear. This type of behavior can have a big impact on the disappointed person. This leaves people feeling betrayed and disappointed, which damages the trust and reliability that were considered important to the relationship. There are questions about commitment that often make you rethink the role of the person and their value in your life. To find out what kind of relationship is and what the other person really wants, you need to understand this pattern. It means recognizing that constant support from through good times and bad is an essential part of any meaningful relationship. Recognizing that someone is not there for you when you need them most is a good way to tell the difference between people who genuinely care about your well-being and those who are using the relationship solely for their own benefit. The video the eye is already halfway through its runtime. You should be proud that you are trying to improve. Also, I humbly request you to leave a comment, as it really helps my channel Mind Over Body. When you don't know what to say, I know you can come here. Also, don't forget to subscribe to receive more videos like this. Number 9. Failure to return the favor. Imagining a seesaw with one side heavy from work, sacrifices and promises, and the other side light from not having to make any similar contributions. This picture shows a relationship where neither person gives or receives anything in return, even though both people are constantly devoting time, energy, and emotion to maintaining the connection, but the other person's contributions are usually small or non-existent. Diverse efforts can show up in different ways. You might always be the one to start talking and making plans, while they respond with lukewarm or neutral responses. People who constantly show you support and understanding might not give you the same amount of help or empathy when you need it. You may be honest and open when talking about your own experiences and skills, but they may be closed off or not interested. The reasons for this lack of reciprocity come from focusing on oneself in relationships. The relationship is just a convenience for the person who wants to take advantage of you. They will use it as needed without the intention of giving or receiving anything meaningful. Their involvement is based on what will benefit them, disregarding the other person's wants and needs. Such a behavior goes against what healthy relationships are all about: sharing experiences and doing equal amounts of emotional work. Knowing there isn't reciprocity requires paying close attention to how the relationships work. It involves asking if the work to keep and grow the connection is shared equally, or if you are solely responsible for it. It asks for an honest evaluation of whether the relationship feels mutually beneficial or harmful, balanced or unbalanced. Number 10. Break of trust. Betraying someone in a relationship is like finding a crack in the foundation of a building. Small problems may not be noticed at first, but over time they can weaken the entire structure and cause it to collapse. There are different types of betrayal, from lying and deception to more serious betrayals. The lack of openness, honesty, and communication is a sign of betrayal. If you notice that the other person is constantly lying or hiding information, that's a warning sign. What strengthens trust? Honesty and betrayal undermine this trust. The lack of emotional loyalty is also a form of betrayal. Feeling emotionally connected to someone means that they will be there for you when things get difficult. You do not tell others your secrets or support your efforts. Adultery, whether physical or mental, is another form of betrayal. In a love relationship, betrayal can cause great damage. This is difficult to fix. To recognize betrayal, you must trust your instincts and pay attention to warning signs. If they treat you differently or act inconsistently, don't ignore it. When Dealing with betrayal. It is important to communicate openly and honestly. You must approach the situation with empathy and a sincere desire to understand why you or the other person betrayed you. When you discover it, it is also important to make decisions and set clear boundaries that remain emotionally healthy. Understanding and recognizing these behavioral patterns in a relationship is important to maintaining healthy and meaningful connections. Recognizing the truth about a situation requires self-awareness, honesty, and courage. These are all common patterns in relationships. Then you're not the only one who sees them. Although it may be difficult, addressing these issues is necessary for your long-term health. It is always important to strengthen your emotional health. If you set clear boundaries, get help from a professional, or face difficult decisions, don't forget that you deserve relationships that support you and help you grow. Number 11. Available in certain situations. There is time for you but not for her. Describing a relationship with selective availability is like a telephone line where only one person is available at a time. This way of working means you are always ready to listen, help, or offer support. It's easy for them to access your calendar and emotional resources. On the contrary, the availability of each other is as rare as a comet in the night sky. Sometimes it changes, and it always depends on what they want. It's not just the fact that people are busy or have different priorities that causes this difference in availability. The choice was made on purpose. The person's use of the relationship is a calculated move. Lack of availability does two things. By limiting their availability, you keep them at a comfortable distance and empower them. When you are given time or attention, you are often grateful for it because it makes you want more. If you try to contact or become involved with someone in such relationships, they inevitably give you reasons not to, delay, or even ignore you. Someone may not respond to your texts or calls, or may not understand what you need. If they participate, it usually fits their needs or plans. If you let them take control of the relationship, percent of the time you will stop being a valued partner and instead focus on making it easier for them. When this pattern occurs, it can take a toll on your emotions. At some point you begin to doubt your own worth and the value of what you bring to the relationship. This makes you feel inadequate because you know your efforts and availability are not valued. Understanding selective availability makes you frustrated and angry. You have to understand the pattern. When you do this, you need to take a step back and look at the relationship with an open mind while you are there. Weigh up the balance between effort and availability. Making an effort and respecting each other are important parts of a healthy relationship. Number 12. Making you feel bad. Imagine a situation in which guilt is like a puppet master's strings, pulling the good conscience down a path it may not want to follow. Your sense of duty, compassion, or justice will be used by the person using you to get what they want. They may ask you in a way that makes it seem like you are being rude or selfish. When you say no, may remind you of past favors or events that indicate an unspoken debt that you need to repay. This way of making people feel guilty is often deceptive and subtle. First, they ask for small favors or concessions, then they demand bigger things. Your boundaries and your power to say no, they become weaker over time, trapping you in a cycle of blame and giving in to your wants and needs, which are ignored or pushed aside while the other person receives most of the attention. This strategy works because it addresses a fundamental human need, the desire to be seen as friendly, helpful, and caring. By making you feel guilty, the user turns these virtues into levers of control. You do things not because you want to or because you respect each other, but because you feel like you have to protect your emotional health and personal boundaries. It's important to identify when someone is using guilt to control you. Even if it makes you feel angry or tired, it means being aware of the emotional currents of the people you interact with and being able to distinguish between genuine requests for help and people trying to take advantage of your kindness. It takes courage to ask yourself why someone is asking you to do something and defend your right to say no without feeling guilty. To build healthier relationships based on mutual respect, genuine care, and choice rather than obligation and guilt, it is important to recognize and deal with this manipulative behavior. Number 13. Absence of personal interest. Thought, feelings, and experiences should flow in both Directions during a conversation. In a healthy relationship, people with similar interests and concerns are constantly talking to each other on the street. However, when you're dealing with someone who only wants to take advantage of you, the road becomes a one-way conversation. These are based on their stories and experiences. Trying to steer the conversation toward your life usually leads to detours or dead ends. Several signs point to this lack of personal interest. Conversations with these types of people often seem like monologues that are published as dialogues. They enthusiastically share the details of their daily lives, including the problems and successes they face, hoping that you will understand and care. On the contrary, they lose interest when the conversation turns to you. They can react quickly and virtually with hand gestures, change the subject, or show that they are bored or impatient. No matter how important your problems and experiences are, they don't seem to register with you. See radar devices. They're not just bad at their social skills or talking to people. This behavior goes beyond that. They show their priorities and intentions by taking over the conversation and ignoring their stories. They create an environment in which their own desires, opinions, and lives are more valued. In a way, it is egocentrism when the relationship is focused on them and you are simply there to observe them or give them feedback on their ideas. The effects of these types of interactions can be very disappointing. Painting a basic human need for recognition and understanding that goes unmet can leave people feeling small and frustrated. Over time, this imbalance can weaken the relationship and make you feel like a secondary part of his life rather than a worthy partner. It is important to recognize this lack of personal interest. This includes recognizing the emotional impact of your interactions and being aware of how they work. These one-sided conversations have an impact on you. You can find more satisfying relationships where your stories and experiences are valued and respected. By determining whether the relationship is mutually enriching or exhausting. Number 14. Conversations involving only one person. When people talk to each other, their thoughts, feelings, and experiences are like cars driving in both directions down a street. This is what this road would look like in a healthy relationship. People would care and be interested in each other. There's only one way to navigate the street. When you're dealing with someone who wants to take advantage of you, they lead the conversation with their stories and experiences. This lack of interest in your life manifests itself in different ways, including attempts to direct the conversation to your life. They often lead to detours or dead ends. They are very interested in talking about the details of their daily lives, including the problems they face and the things they do well. That conversations with these people often seem like monologues disguised as dialogue. Their interest wanes as the conversation turns to you. Even though they expect your attention and empathy, you may get a quick answer, change the subject, or make it clear that the person is not interested or is impatient. Your worries don't seem to particularly extend to your problems and experiences, no matter how important they are to you. See, senses they're not just bad at their social skills or talking to people. This behavior goes beyond that. This is a conscious statement about your goals and priorities. They create an environment where your needs, opinions, and life take precedence. By controlling the conversation and ignoring your stories, it is a subtle form of egocentrism in which they put themselves first in the relationship and see you only as an observer or confidant of their thoughts. The impact of these types of interactions can be very disappointing. A basic human need for recognition and understanding that goes unmet can leave people feeling small and frustrated. Over time, this imbalance can weaken the relationship and make you feel like a secondary part of his life rather than a worthy partner. It is important to recognize this lack of personal interest. There can be a lot of conversation, shared laughter, and even seemingly private conversations. Unfortunately, this feeling of closeness never has any real meaning. Several signs suggest that this lack of real commitment can cause the relationship to drift away as they enjoy the finer things in the relationship just as quickly. People are asked to stretch or make sacrifices when necessary. Number 15. Their support is infrequent or non-existent. They may be there when you're celebrating happily, but not when you're going through a difficult time or Feeling insecure. Furthermore, this type of superficial closeness often lacks trust and reliability, which are important components of meaningful relationships. It's common for plans to be cancelled carelessly and promises are almost never kept. Your participation in the relationship is usually based on your own calm and interest. This type of behavior is usually done to maintain a network of contacts that can be used when needed without doing the emotional work that real relationships require. The goal is to maintain a relationship with someone close enough to be useful but not too close to require commitment. In a way, it's a way to protect your feelings, reap the benefits of proximity without the risk of real commitment or responsibility. To understand the dynamics of a relationship, one must be able to distinguish between superficial closeness and reality. Check whether perceived closeness coincides with acts of genuine commitment and shared vulnerability. It means observing how people interact with one another and asking whether the patterns match. It's about finding out whether the emotional investment in the relationship is fair or whether it is biased. Both people lack real commitment and growth in the relationship, but there is a facade of closeness. Discovering this will help you build relationships based on honesty, mutual respect, and real emotional depth. Number 16. Maintain a lack of respect. When someone disrespects you, it's more than just a mistake or a slip up in the heat of the moment. It is an ongoing theme that runs through the relationship and shows up in different ways. It could be cruel words, actions, or even a clear disregard for your feelings and boundaries. It can be subtle, like a series of small cuts, or obvious, like one big cut that leaves you with poor self-esteem. Picture a garden where respect is the food that helps relationships grow. When it's not there, the only thing that's left is a desert where nothing healthy can grow. When this happens, any attempt to connect or talk becomes a path full of thorns of disrespect and lack of care. The person who doesn't respect you uses it against you to show that you're in charge or dominant in a relationship. You may do this on purpose or not. This makes the other person feel less important. Maintain the advantage in a situation where justice and mutual respect must prevail. This persistent lack of respect significantly weakens the relationship. When disagreements arise, they are not resolved with understanding and compassion. Instead, they become emotional battlefields where no one cares who dies. It is difficult, if not impossible, to return to a state of normality and mutual respect when the normal flow of relationship dynamics is disrupted. It is very important to understand and recognize this pattern of ongoing disrespect. It means going beyond individual cases and looking at the bigger picture of people's behavior. It means recognizing that respect is shown not only with big actions but also with the small ones every day. Constant disrespect in a relationship shows that the other person does not see you as an equal partner but as a way to get something more. This is evident in little. This disregard for your feelings and dignity, demonstrated by things like the thank you cards and the final handling of arguments, indicates that your relationship is essentially flawed and dysfunctional. People who value their self-worth and wish to form relationships based on justice and respect for one another should look for this trait.